Hi everybody, we're here for our second workout. We're going to keep a lot of the ideas that we had during the first workout as far as creating tension, maintaining good stability through all those kind of more squeeze-based movements. And we're going to take those today, continue to think about that squeezing and contraction as our number one priority, but we're going to introduce a little bit more movement into this workout. So it'll be a little bit more of your standard kind of strength circuit. So with that being said, we're going to start again with foam rolling. So if you don't have one and want to jump ahead about 3 minutes, go ahead. If you do have one, go ahead and grab yours. We're going to do the same 3 movements as last time, but I'll add a little bit to each movement. Frank's going to help us here. All right, so we'll start on your upper back. We're working between the shoulder blades, just like we did last time. Watch out. All right, so again, foam roller goes between the shoulder blades. We're focused on the top half of the back. We're thinking 1 inch per second. We're trying to get all those muscles to relax, so avoid the tendency to kind of tense up and engage those muscles. We want to stay relaxed and loose here. Okay, so to add to this now, I want you to drop your hips. We're going to keep our head and neck pretty rigid, and then I want you to tighten up your abs as hard as you can. So we're going to look to extend through your upper back. So a lot of us get stuck in what's called flexion, where we're kind of rounded over. We're going to try to work the opposite direction of that. So abs stay really tight. Again, head and neck are going to stay rigid, and I want you to try to press back into your hands a little bit, maintaining a good tight midsection. So I don't want you to arch in order to find movement. We're going to keep the abs tight, and we're just trying to get about 1 or 2 inches of movement up top. Try to undo that kind of rounded over feeling we get. Just get 2 more reps here. Again, only about 1 or 2 inches of movement coming from your upper back. That'll do. We'll move to the glutes, just like our first workout. Again, my hips are pretty square to the ceiling. I don't want you to be all the way to your side. We're trying to work that glute tissue in the back. All right, so I want you to get pretty central to that glute. And you're going to slowly bend your knee and bring it towards your hip. So we're going to pin the muscle on that roller and slowly flex at the hip and bring the knee up towards your chest. When you start to feel a bit of a stretch, we'll just hold that position and breathe into the glute a little bit. And we'll switch. Same idea here. We'll pin that muscle in the same place and then slowly bend at the hip. Bring your knee towards your chest until you feel a bit of a stretch, and we'll hold that position for a few deep breaths. And we'll finish with the quads. Today we're going to finish working really high up on the quads, actually in a different muscle that connects to your IT band. So let's get our normal hip to knee, 1 inch per second. Add a little bit of left to right movement to it as well. All right, now I want you to come all the way up to the top of the thigh, just below kind of that hip bone that points out, you'll find a good chunk of muscle to the outside portion. So we'll spend about 10 good seconds there. You might not even be moving at this point. Just find some tenderness, and we're just going to press into the roller, get that tissue to calm down. We'll go ahead and switch. Get our full row from hip to knee. And let's find that TFL on this side. So the very top chunk to the outside of the leg, just underneath that hip bone that points out in front. When you're sitting a lot, this can tighten up quite a bit. So it'll generally be a little bit more tender. Alrighty. So, if you're joining us here, we're going to start with those same rotations. We'll do them a little different today. We're just going to do 2 reps, but we're going to take 4 deep breaths on each rep. So remember, keys to set up, we need the knee to come up higher than the hip. That'll take rotation out of the lower back. I'm going to use my fingertips here to trace as big of a circle as close to the floor as I can. Once we're open, we'll take 4 breaths. Keep reaching with this bottom arm here. We're trying to keep the shoulders away from the ears. Try to create some space in your back. Reach away from your body. Circle forward. We'll get 1 more rep. If you're feeling tension in what's called your upper traps, let's reach a little further. Let the top of the back unwind a little bit more. 1 more breath. And we'll circle back. We'll get 2 of those reps on the other side. Knee above my hip. Reach for my circle. Check in on your shoulders, your neck, and your chest. See if there's any tension in there that you can get rid of. The tighter you are for this, the more your body's going to kind of tense up to try to create more room, but that actually takes away some space. So really try to breathe nice and relax. Good, we'll move on to our breathing. So forehead on the back of the hands. We're thinking tight abs all the way through. Press your belly button into the floor and let's breathe deep through the nose. So each breath, I'm going to press my stomach into the floor and exhale out. Just like the first workout where we used our fingertips to check for pressure in the midsection, now we're just going to use the floor as that barrier. So try to expand your whole midsection. Create a nice 360-degree inner tube around your whole midsection. Let's get 3 more breaths. These last 3, I want you to pay attention to how much tension you're creating in your stomach and how much air you're really pulling in down to that midsection. So the more air you're going to pull in, the tighter you need to engage those abs. This is the fine-tuning part of this brace. The heavier the weight you're going to lift, the more demanding the exercise, the more you'll probably need to inhale, engage, and expand there. So let's get 2 more breaths. Alrighty, so we're going to move to 3 different exercises here. So we're going to start with shoulder taps in a hand plank position. We'll move to a half kneeling drill, and then we'll get to some squats. So for our shoulder plank with shoulder hand plank with shoulder taps, if you have wrist issues and you happen to have some dumbbells, we can use these to basically plank off of instead of having your wrist in that fully flexed position. We can also work from a forearm plank. Find any kind of variation that works for you. But for our shoulder taps, hands are going to be shoulder width and your feet are going to be wider than your shoulders to start. So what we're going to do is hold a single arm plank and tap the opposite shoulder with your hand. Now you'll notice my hips aren't rotating or moving at all. If you have to move your whole body weight, I want you to widen your feet and narrow your hands. So we're creating good tension and stability. The only thing moving is my single arm here. Let's get 5 more each. Abs have to be tight, legs have to be tight. If you start losing your brace or you're shifting your weight, just cut the set short. We'll get 1 more each. And relax. All right, so we'll move to a half kneeling drill with a little bit of movement compared to last workout. So last workout we worked on creating tension and driving. Now we're going to sit back, so my butt goes back, my abs stay tight, and then I squeeze and press this hip. Sit back, squeeze and press. Same intensity as the first workout. Now we're just driving a little bit of movement through this hip. You'll notice I don't round or arch my back. So this movement is coming purely from the hips here. So there's no movement coming from my upper and lower back. It's all from the hips. Let's get 4 more. Stick your butt back, just like you're trying to shut a car door behind you. Say you're holding onto a bunch of groceries. You need to shut that door behind you with your butt. Just going to stick your hips back, squeeze and press. We'll get 10 the other way. Don't go easy on the squeeze and stretch in front. That's where most of the work is happening. Let's get 4 more. Good. We'll finish this circuit with some squats. All right, so we'll use our hands and arms just to get a little bit of extra work in. So I want you to push your hands together as hard as you can on each squat. Good constant tension up top. Find a width that's comfortable to you for your squats. Most important thing is to make sure we get our hips behind us. And we open from the hips. So you'll notice my knees are traveling forward a little bit, but my heels are staying pressed on the floor. If you feel your heels coming up, try a little bit wider stance and try pointing the toes out a little bit. If you're still finding the heels coming up, I want you to go to box squats. So we did those the first workout. That's where you're going to actually sit down to the couch or chair and press back up. We'll get 1 more here. Keep squeezing up top. Good. Round 1 done. We'll get back to our rotations. All right, so knee higher than the hip. Constant reach. Excuse me, bud. 4 breaths. One more rep. Abs will be loose here. Continue to try to breathe into your stomach. Check in on tension in your neck, chest, shoulders. And we'll switch sides. And 4 breaths. We'll get back to our crocodile breathing on your stomach. Really focus this set on abs being engaged for the whole time. Let's get 10 breaths. Five to go. Two left. All right, keep holding those abs in place. We'll get our 10 and 10 on taps. Good deep breaths. Try not to let your head and neck drop towards the floor. Let's go for 5 more. And we'll get to our half kneeling. Abs stay pretty rigid. I'm going to sink my hips back, let my chest sink down. Press and squeeze. My hip stretches, glute stretches. Squeeze and press it forward. Let's get 5 more here. And we'll switch. Five down, 5 to go. Stay active on that squeeze. Make sure you're really pushing it, squeezing at the top, getting a stretch in front. And we'll finish with squats again. So with the lower half, I want you to think about knees, making sure they track over the toes. So if my toes are pointed out a little bit, my knee should follow it. I don't want that to cave in, and I don't want to press out so much that it comes out of line with those first 2 toes. So just make sure they're tracking over, and the heels stay pressed, and we're getting a good squeeze with the hands up top. We'll do 5 more. Two more. Good. All right, on to our second circuit. We'll do some push-ups, some single leg kind of deadlifts, no weights needed, some rows, and some side planks. So for push-ups, I want you to think, again, tight abs. If you can engage the glutes and the legs, great. But we'll start elevated. If you're ready to go to the ground, that's great, but make sure the head and neck doesn't dive forward and we don't lose the hips. So just like in a hand plank, we're going to keep a good rigid core throughout the whole movement. So I prefer for you to elevate your hands versus dropping to a knee push-up, but find the right one that works for you. Again, head and neck in line, midsection and legs tight. So we'll go for at most 10 reps, but find a good setup that challenges you for at least 5 reps. There's 10. All right, we'll get to our single leg hinge drill. So this is gonna feel a lot like our half kneeling exercise. So I'm gonna use my hardwood floor and my socks here. Let me show you a little better. All right, so my left leg is gonna be the leg that moves. I'm gonna slide my toes on the floor, sink my hips back, let my top half come down with it. I'm going to keep really light on this slider foot and push through the floor with my plant leg. So I sit my hips back just like our half kneeling. I push through the floor to stand up. Stay as light as you can on your slider foot here. If you don't have tile or hardwood floor, go ahead and use carpet. You can grab a couch or a door frame for a little balance. We'll get one more on this side. And we'll switch. Notice how my plant knee really doesn't come too far forward. So it stays right over kind of the surface of my foot. This isn't a squat where I stay tall and my knee comes forward. I'm going to sink my hips back, let my chest sink down, and I'll get more glute and hamstring this way. If you can learn to use your hips well, it'll save your back quite a bit of stress. So let's get the hip loaded, push through the floor and come up. We'll get 2 more. Stay really light on that slider foot, push through the floor. All right, we'll come to some rows. So I have some dumbbells, but feel free to grab a case of water, a backpack. You can load some stuff in a backpack, whatever you need for our rows here. So we're going to think really flat back. And I want to travel through my shoulder blade as much as I can. So I'm not going to row in front of my body where my shoulders is closer to the floor. I'm going to wrap my shoulder blade back, then I'm going to row it. So I wrap and row. Just try to imagine pinching that shoulder blade to the middle and then following with the arm. This will save you a lot of shoulder stress and start controlling those shoulder blade muscles back there, the stuff that we rolled at the beginning. We'll go for about 10. If the weight you have is a little light, you can go more. If what you have to use is heavy, you can go less. Let's get 2 more. Notice how my back stays flat. I don't let the weight bend my back here. We'll get 10 on the other side. Let's get 3 more. Keep starting that movement by pinching the shoulder blade back. That's the first thing to turn on, the last thing to relax. Last one. All right, we'll finish with some side planks. Okay, so for the side planks, I want you to use a forearm, and then we're going to keep the knees down for these. So we'll get about 10 seconds of really good form versus maybe shaky form where you're on your feet versus your knees. So my feet are going to be pointed back behind me. I'm going to bring my hips all the way in line with my knees and shoulder. I start the movement by pushing my forearm through the floor. So I lift my chest up, bring my hips up, push my hips forward. Glutes are tight, abs are tight, and I'm driving down through the floor to get my chest tall. We'll go for about 5 deep breaths or 10 seconds. We're just trying to avoid movement here, so nothing should be moving. We're tight, tight, and pushing. 1 more breath. Good. And we'll switch. A little little different angle here. So I get my hips in line, I push my chest up, I bring my hips up, my glutes are tight, my abs are tight, I'm driving the floor away from me, getting my chest tall. Keep squeezing glutes, keep those abs tight and breathe in behind them. One more breath. Great, we'll get through that circuit once more, so start with your push-ups. Good, we'll go to that single leg slider exercise. All right, so we're trying to close the gap down between my chest and my quad in front here. Everything's sitting back and my chest is sinking straight down. Back up. Stay light on the slider foot. Really actively push your plant foot through the floor. Don't just stand yourself up. Really connect to the floor and push through it. We'll get that glute and hamstring and quad to work. 2 more on this side. Switch it up. Notice you're putting a lot of weight on your slider foot. Cut down on that range of motion. We'll stay light. Try to load up this glute. Feel those muscles stretch and squeeze and hold on. As you get more comfortable, we can reach a little further. Especially on the change of direction. Let's stay light on that plant foot, or on the slider foot. We'll get 1 more. Good. Go ahead to rows. Again, as much movement behind you as you can before the arm comes through. Two more. And we'll switch. Start with the shoulder blade, finish with the arm. Three to go. We'll finish with side planks. Again, get set up right so our hips are forward. I'm going to drive my upper body tall first. Bring the hips up. Bring them forward so my glutes are tight. Keep driving that floor, trying to keep your chest up. Working down here. Breathe into this bottom side oblique. 1 more breath. Good. Press up. Lift hips, bring hips forward. 4 more breaths. Great. Feel free to run through that again. Thanks again for joining in. I'll come back next week with 2 different workouts. They'll build on some of this, but also just show you some different sets and reps and exercises, things to do. Thanks again and have a great weekend.